Hello, cyberspace. It's me, Angie, and I welcome both you and your ears to an episode of Life, Love, Music, and Space Travel. In case you're wondering who Angie is, I'm Angie, and I'm super stoked to spend some time sharing with y'all some of my experiences and thoughts on living, loving, music, and space travel, or spiritual experiences as I often refer to as space travel. A rather broad spectrum, right? Well, my hope is to always share something that resonates with, intrigues, excites, or perhaps inspires you. On that note, I invite you to sit back, buckle up, and take a little trip out into the cosmos with me. Hello. I'm back. Yeah, it's me, Angie. I have decided to come back for episode number 2. So, truth be told, I've been sitting here in front of my computer for, I don't know, maybe an hour now. Having some trouble, some technical difficulties. I still have not figured out exactly how the microphone is connecting to the computer. It seems like every time I plug it in or I start up my Audacity app, which is the recording technology for this deal. But it seems like every time I turn it on, I seem to have some kind of weird issue with the microphone connecting and the headphones connecting. I have no idea what it's about. So I've really been sitting here in front of the computer trying to figure out how to make it all work. I pressed a button. I pressed another button. Bada bing, bada boom. Finally, here I am. I almost decided to give up. And then I said, you know what? I'm not going to do it. The gremlins, those are the gremlins getting in my way, trying to keep me from continuing on this incredible journey I've recently embarked on in the podcast world. For any of you who don't know, I'm Angie, and I just recently started this podcast, Life, Love, Music, and Space Travel. Officially published my first episode last week. And it's been an in the works process for sure, but I finally got it going, up and running. You might hear a little bit of grumbling in the background. Those are my furry babes, somewhat sleeping soundly on the bed next to me. Yes, I am recording this high-tech podcast from my bedroom, the bedroom in my parents' house. For any of you who also don't know, I am recently moved in with my parents, 50 years old, living with my mom and dad. Thank goodness for them, for, as I have mentioned before, allowing me a soft place to fall. Life rarely goes the way we want it to, think it will, would like it to, fear it will, expect it to. Instead, it turns out the way it turns out. And this happens to be where I am right now. So here we are. Once again, thanks for all of you who have listened to my first episode, who have supported me, who have offered your kind kudos and shared with me some really wonderful words to keep me going on this journey. It's been interesting and exciting already. I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing. I did talk to a cousin of mine and he mentioned, don't mention being nervous or unsure. And I'm really all of those things, but I'm doing the thing anyway. And I'm just going to let this thing unfold, try to let it unfold as organically as possible. My intention, as it says in my opening audio, is to share something that resonates with, inspires, excites you, something. I live a life just like everybody else. And selfishly, this podcast is really a place for me to empty out my brain. And in the process, hopefully, share something with you that makes you realize you're not alone on your journey. This earthly experience is fucking crazy, man, and filled with plenty of ups and downs. I'm not really sure where to go with this episode in particular. So I'm just going to wing it. I've been thinking that I'm going to try and put out a little bit of information or touch on each of the topics, give them a little bit of a, segment time, 13 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, who knows. However, it's a pretty free-flowing format that I'm shooting for. So I'm just going to jump right in. I'm going to start off with the life deal. Something really that's been hitting me quite a bit this week for whatever reason is this idea of starting over, which is really what I'm doing. I will repeat again, I'm recently having recently just moved to Wilmington, North Carolina, which is where my parents have been for the last few years. I have been in the Colorado Rockies, Eagle. That's where I spent Eagle County, I'll say. That's where I spent the last 27 years. The last 17 years were in Eagle in particular. And I really miss it. Starting over, I'm starting over. Divorced. I don't want to say unexpectedly, but it was not my plan. This is not the way that things were supposed to work out. I got married to stay married, and I did the best I could. He did the best he could, and this is where we are at this point. So I turned 50 this past summer. Another big hurdle, milestone, for sure. There was a time in my life when I didn't think I'd live past 25, and here I am at 50, almost 51 for goodness sake. But starting over was not something I expected to be doing at this point in my life. I really did everything I could to not have to start over. And yet the universe had something else planned, something else in store for me. So here I am, having left the frozen ocean of the Colorado Rockies, and am now pretty close to the fluid ocean. 7 minutes if I really want to be on the beach from my parents' house. And I also recently started working. In the last 2 weeks, I started working at a super sweet restaurant in Curry Beach called Jack Mackerel's Ireland Grill, serving all kinds of yummy things: steak, seafood, sandwiches, burgers, but seafood is the real deal. And it's literally 30-second walk from their front door to the beach. So I feel like I've sort of found my a little piece of heaven, I will say. But it's been a really interesting go. They've been incredibly warm, welcoming. I've really enjoyed getting to know the staff. Having only been there for 2 weeks, I haven't really had any busy business, but I've been slinging food of some sort for the last 30 years. So I feel like I'll be able to handle it. But it's interesting, being in a new environment, exposing yourself to new people. I'm sure that many of you out there have done it, are doing it, are going to end up doing it. So I do just want to share that it's possible, starting over at 50, 60, 40, 30, however old somebody might be. I've really been trying to let go and just embrace the experience for what it is. I find it's much less painful, for sure, much less frightening as well when I can let go. I worked today. After work, it's wonderful. I go to my car, which I still have my snowboard and my snowboard boots in. They are of no use at this point, but they are still in my car because I can't let go just yet. I would love to be able to drive somewhere and strap into my bindings and play in the snow for a while, but I think it's a 6-hour ride to the nearest mountain, and I'm not really up for that yet. So instead, I am, I watched the closing ceremonies of the Olympics last night. Yeah, I know it's been over for a while, but thank goodness for the DVR and the ability to watch that stuff whenever you want. And I took the walk down, memory lane with Shaun White as he talked about his last run coming down for his his last run down the half pipe. And it really, made my heart swell. I have spent 27 years on the mountain, Vail Mountain, Beaver Creek Mountain, for the most part. Spent quite a bit of time on Aspen Mountain, and my heart is admittedly aching for one of my loves. I do love snowboarding, and I'm not really good at many sports, but I'm a pretty good snowboarder, and it feels strange to not be participating in that winter activity. But once again, acceptance of where I am and trying to be where my feet are, which is in the sand more often than not lately instead of in the snow. Thinking about change, kind of transitioning into, so yeah, my old life is, for goodness, yesterday was my old life. But that being said, transitioning from not being in Colorado anymore, sold the house that I lived in for the last 17 years. And something else that I've been noticing recently is how important it has been to have some of my creature comforts with me. I have this small cutting board that I use for my dog's food. Something about it just is providing me comfort, a little piece of my old life. Most of my stuff has been packed up in a moving trailer. I shipped my life really across country. It was a year ago in November, and it's been sitting in a packing trailer in Charlotte somewhere for, the last year plus, with all of a good portion of my material life in it. All of my vinyl is in it, my pictures, my clothes, all of my eBay. I have an eBay store, and the majority of my supplies and product is in the trailer also. But I came here to North Carolina in my car with my dogs and a few personal items, the things that I had kept with me. My blankets, as I mentioned, still driving around with my snowboard gear, my gloves, my hat, my helmet. And I'm just finding quite a bit of comfort in that. So if anyone else out there has had a big move recently, made a big move, is in transition, you're not the only one if you happen to be doing anything like that, holding old pieces of your life that are near and dear to you, close to you. Change is not easy. That is for sure. Oh, let's see. I actually had the opportunity to kind of walk down memory lane as well at work today with a few of the regular customers. It was really wonderful. One of the gentlemen's name was Greg, and he was very familiar with Eagle and the surrounding area, had been there for hunting and had been on the mountain and played golf. And it really kind of, once again, made me feel like I belonged. I'm surrounded by a whole new group of people. I don't know. It's really a wonderful thing how kind people are, and once people open their mouths, including myself, the conversation starts to flow, and we're so much more alike than we're not alike. Anyway, for whatever that's worth, I'm slowly transitioning. I talked to a friend of mine today, and she was asking me how I was doing, and I said, life is still crazy. I really don't know what I'm doing, where I'm going, how long I'm going to be here. What the fuck is going on? What is happening is one side of my brain, and then at the same time, I am moving forward. It's been pretty cool. I have this job. I started this podcast, for goodness sake. I'm going to take the dogs to the vet. I'm going to have to make a dentist appointment soon. And, I'm getting mail here. I'm transitioning and moving forward, even when life is not the way I want it to be and people are not necessarily doing what I want them to do. And that's exciting. So I share that message of hope also for anyone else out there. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. You don't have to be doing things right, or you don't have to always feel good about it, but keep putting one foot in front of the other, and life, it will continue to unfold whether we want it to or not, for the most part, unless it's our time to head off to the next great adventure. But in the meantime, let's see, I have been posting my podcast. It is officially on Spotify, Apple, and I think maybe it's going to go to Pandora. I believe those are the three. Also on Amazon. It's on Amazon. And so I have been, putting the links on Facebook, and I've had quite a few people reach out, as I mentioned. So I'm going to officially kind of dive into one of the topics that somebody asked me about in particular. My friend Carly Harrison, who we met in Red Cliff, Colorado, quite some time ago, 20 years ago maybe. And I believe she now lives in Netherlands, and Facebook's been really wonderful. It's been such a wonderful place to stay connected to people that I might never have seen again, might never have heard from again. And instead, I've been finding lately just people kind of coming out of the woodwork, which has been it's been really neat. I try not to look at all the other stuff on Facebook and instead just really use it for actual networking, fellowship, that kind of stuff. And so anyway, Carly asked me about a particular topic that I feel like I'm just going to try and touch on a little bit. She was curious as to whether I had some info or tips for women heading into the 50 arena. 50 years old. Holy crap, I'm going to say it again. I turned 50 this summer. And right now, living with my parents, I feel like I'm 15, for goodness sake. My mom has said that to me over the years. She's like, I never feel my age. I always feel younger. And that is exactly where I am right now. I do not feel my age. I feel much younger, which I guess is wonderful. My body definitely aches a little bit, but I'm grateful to feel 15 at times, rather than 50. But the truth is, for the most part, I'm enjoying 50. Tips for women moving into 50. I don't know that I have any tips, but I do know for me that for the most part, getting older has been pretty liberating. I definitely give a lot less of a shit about things than I did when I was 20. An area that I don't think I'd ever want to be again. Although I was in the best shape of my life for the most part, I was in no way, shape, or form able to find gratitude in it or really see what great shape I was in for the most part. I do have to admit this past summer was the darkest summer of my life, and yet because of, I don't know, the work I've done on myself and a continued effort to move forward on my journey of recovery and self-discovery, I found that I was grateful to move out of my 40s. The 40s were pretty rough and tough. Lots of learning, lots of growth, a lot of growing in the area of independence, I guess, letting go of codependency to a certain extent, if I'm saying that right. I don't have much to say about 50 because I'm kind of barely there. I mean, I am almost through the first year of it, but I am really enjoying 50. I like the sound of it. When I look around, quite often I feel like look pretty damn good for 50 and I feel pretty good. So don't fear 50. That's kind of all I have to say. Well, no, I'm going to throw out one thing. I bought a Vitamix a few days ago. And so I guess in all honesty, I have found moving into the 50s has sort of spurred on this desire to be fit. Not for anybody else necessarily, but really for myself. I want to be fit. I want to feel good. And so I am a little bit more focused. All these F words, my goodness. I am a little bit more focused on trying to embrace the concept of a healthier eating lifestyle. I am trying to incorporate some more movement. I got a membership at the gym, of which I have not been in a few weeks. Ever since I started working, it's really messed with my outside activity schedule. So that's kind of it for now, Carly. I'm not really sure if I helped you out with any of that stuff, but keep going forward and try not to fear your 50s, because I'm going to say so far, even with all the challenges, and maybe it's just how I'm feeling at the moment, but 50 is feeling pretty fucking fantastic right now. And I think that's what I've got to say on that. All right. Let's see, where do we go from there? I think I'm going to move into the love category. I've been thinking a lot about that lately as well. I may be talking fast. I appreciate anyone and everyone who is listening again. I'm kind of going to stumble through this whole podcast format deal as I as I muddle my way through how I'm going to get the topics out, what I'm going to talk about. It may be confusing and there might be some rambling, but I'll eventually get it down. So I appreciate your patience with me as I learn, as I learn through this process. So I have been thinking about love, life, this whole life deal. Love is a guaranteed part of it. But a question that's been coming to my mind really is, what do I know about love? I thought I knew a lot about it. I'm pretty sure I've been in love before. I love my dogs. I really still love my ex-husband. I love my friends and family. But things have shifted a little over the last few years as I've been focusing more on self-love and understanding that without self-love, I really can't honestly or truly love another being in a healthy manner, I should say, not a like a codependent or fearful love. And so thinking about love, what does it look like? Right now it looks like the two, my Marshmallow and Chip dude, who are stretched out and cozy in bed. I love them. I love, love, love them. When I came home after work today, they were out in the yard with my mom. She was gardening, and I just sort of snuck into the backyard. And when they saw me, they both stopped for a second and looked at me and came running towards me. And gosh, that feels good. I don't know if, Sean, if you're listening, if you hear this, I know that they love and miss you. And it makes me sad that you're not close enough to see them. Love. What does it truly mean to love another being? I'm kind of in a challenged area right now where I feel like I have to make some decisions, and I'm afraid of how it will affect somebody that I love very much. And yet I feel like my decision making is really based on a level of love, even though it may not look that way. I don't know, love. Love is a long, long road. Is that something? Is that a song? Maybe. Tom Petty. Long Road. I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with that. But anyway, that's what I've got to say on love for now. I love, as much as I could be really challenged with the human race, I love the human race, and I love the human race. I love everything. Well, I can't say everything about us, but I've got great love for the human race. So keep moving forward. All right. I am going to move out of the love category and move into music. There's not a lot going on in my musical world right now, but I got to admit, I'm pretty excited about what this topic area will have to offer eventually. I am, and have mentioned, I have some musical events coming up. They are on the horizon for me. I think the one that is closest is actually going to be Brit Floyd. If anyone has not seen Brit Floyd, the greatest Pink Floyd cover band out there, you have to see them. And if you can see them at Red Rocks in Colorado, you should see them at Red Rocks in Colorado for sure. They are spectacular. If you close your eyes, it's the closest that you'll get to Pink Floyd for sure. I saw them here at the Wilson Center in downtown Wilmington a couple years ago with my brother, and they were amazing. And then I got to see them in Colorado this past summer at Red Rocks with my dear friend Alex, and they were amazing. And I'm going to go see them at the Wilson Center again here in downtown Wilmington, North Carolina. And I actually splurged and got something close to front row. I got the early VIP tickets, and I'm excited about seeing what that has to offer. I think I get to go in early, and they'll play 2 songs that they won't play during the show, and maybe I get a meet and greet or something. But I'm excited. I feel like it's been a while, too long, since I've been to a live music performance, and I'm definitely jonesing for some live music. So that's exciting. That's in April. After that, I feel like possibly there is a Keller Williams concert that's going to be over at the Greenfield Lake Amphitheater, also here in Wilmington. There's some really great venues here in Wilmington. And this is an outside, pretty small, I don't know, I don't want to call it an arena because that's not the right word, but it's a great venue to see. I saw Buddy Guy there a few years ago. So I'm pretty excited about seeing Keller Williams. Keller and the Keels, I think. And then at the end of April, I'm going to Jazz Fest in New Orleans. And I'm definitely excited about that first weekend with The Who, Lionel Richie, and the Foo Fighters are the headliners for the weekend. And then obviously all the other fantastic music that gets played out on the many stages. I've never been to New Orleans in general, and I've definitely not been to Jazz Fest, and I'm super stoked on that. So I feel like that's kind of it. I'm sort of toying with the idea of maybe going to see the Wood Brothers at the Greenfield Lake Amphitheater. I have never seen them, but I've heard good things about them. And also maybe going to see Lettuce because they're both playing in March, and it would give me the opportunity to go see some live music early. I think you can see a bad concert at the Greenfield Lake Amphitheater. So that's what I've got. If anyone else has any suggestions out there of some live music in this area in particular, maybe because that is where I am, please feel free to send me some information. Leave it in the comment section on any of the streaming platforms that I'm on, Amazon, Spotify, or Apple. I think you can leave comments at the bottom. I'd love to hear about it, or you can send me an email, ashysbadass@gmail.com. Also, feel free, please, to send information on topics, something you might want to hear about. You know, maybe I'm familiar with it, or maybe I can look up some information and see what I can offer in the area that you're inquisitive about. I think for now, that's going to be what I've got on music. I will say, I don't have a section for books, but I have been listening to a great book, and I'm just going to toss it out because it happens to be what I've been listening to lately. I do love the Audible app. That's what I have. They recently had like a bunch of books on sale, 86% off, so I splurged on some audiobooks recently. But I've been listening to the spectacular Brené Brown lately, Daring Greatly. For anyone who's interested in learning about shame and vulnerability and how to possibly grow through it, grow out of it, get over it, get better at dealing with it. It is a really great book. I highly recommend any of her stuff, but this one in particular. All right. The last topic tonight, space travel, happens to be one of my favorite sections, and also one of the sections that I'm pretty vulnerable about. This area of my content is focused on kind of a spiritual experience area. That's why I call it space travel. I feel like I'll be touching on all kinds of different stuff as the podcast grows and as I get a little more comfortable with this whole, deal, I guess. But at this point, I have mentioned it. I did mention it in my last episode, and I've also mentioned it on my friend Alex's podcast, The Builder's Journey, which is where I actually that's the first podcast I ever listened to. And on his podcast, I was on episode 56 with him. If you want to check it out, I actually did my first episode. It was Angie Unscripted, conversations on love, music, and psychedelics. I think that's what it was. And that really is what kind of set off my idea or interest in starting my own podcast. But we did a later episode, I think it was episode 78, perhaps. And on that episode, we talked about, it's called The Ketamine Chronicles with Lisa Johnson and Angie Shai. And of course, being that it's Alex's episode, he was on it. He is the host. A big part of the content around my space travel section happens to be my experience with ketamine. I did participate in a clinical setting, not in a jam band party, atmosphere. But I opted to participate in some outside treatment. October, sometime in the beginning of October was when I began my 6-session 6 infusion treatment process. And I actually have had 8, and it's been life-changing and life-saving. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I'm not promoting any of that stuff, but I have struggled with pretty serious depression, and this summer was, as I mentioned, was pretty dark. I would not have called myself suicidal, but I was calling the suicide hotline, and I was talking to peer support groups, and with the support of my longtime doctor, my family, my parents, my friends, I decided to opt into this infusion process. And like I said, it has been life-changing and life-saving. And in the world of mental health, in which we're all struggling, it's pretty spectacular to have a new option out there. So just in case anyone is curious about it, being open-minded, I really did a lot of Googling, and I educated myself with the whole deal. And I loved my provider. I miss her, Mandy from High Country Mountain and Infusion in Frisco, Colorado. She was a life-saving participant in my ketamine infusion experience. And so anyway, that being said, I recently read a great article where there is a very well-known company that has finally decided to, they're Dr. Bronner's. I'll definitely include the link in my show notes. But Dr. Bronner's Magic Soaps has decided to, they have decided to offer free ketamine-assisted therapy to their benefit-eligible employees. Now, the company itself is definitely, they consider themselves a peace-preaching, psychedelic backing company. So I think it's not necessarily surprising and probably pretty appropriate that this is the company that chooses to head in this area. But they believe, considering all our advocacy, quote, considering all our advocacy on this issue, this employee benefit is the next logical step. And so it's a really great, it's a great article, and it's really wonderful to see a company supporting their employees in a manner such as this, because it's very hard to find treatment, and it's hard to find healthcare out there in this world, this day and age. So I'm not going to go too deep into that right now, but it's well worth looking into, I think, for anyone who might be struggling with PTSD, med-resistant depression, that kind of stuff. It really has worked wonders for me, and I also look forward to, I'm going to be heading to eventually to Future Psych Ketamine Clinic, I think, in South Myrtle Beach. I have an appointment with them, a telehealth appointment, and I'll let you know how that goes also. I kind of think I've covered everything that's going to be covered in this episode. I'm not really sure what else to talk about. I feel like I've been talking a mile a minute. I didn't even have any coffee. I apologize if I rambled around and talked about a bunch of nothing, or, but this is still, I'm still in very much the practice phase, and I feel like I did what I needed to do and got out what I needed to do for this episode. Angie, I am back, for number 2. I think I'll close it out with, I have mentioned in the past, my one, past episode, Pod Decks. If anyone's unfamiliar with Pod Decks, it's a great app with which you can use it for anything. You can use it as a conversation starter at parties, for anyone else who has a podcast out there. It offers all kinds of questions and conversation starting opportunities. So I'm going to go through here. They have a ton of things to choose from. I am going to look in one of these decks and answer one of these questions. How about, let's see here. You have a craving. What's it for? In all honesty, right now, I'm going to say I have a craving for Inner Light juice. Oh, man. Trisha and Keith in Eagle, Colorado, Inner Light Juice. They are a small company and they make cold pressed juices and smoothies. If you're in Eagle and you have not tried, or Eagle County and you have not tried them, you are missing out. I did just buy a Vitamix, as I mentioned. I made a big splurge purchase. I made a smoothie last night. I'm very excited about it, but I am missing their juices. And Trisha actually gave me some information that was very motivating so I went to Whole Foods and bought a bunch of protein powders and mushroom powders and that kind of stuff. But that's my craving, really. I guess that's a wonderful thing. I'm not craving Ben & Jerry's right now. Instead, I'm craving a delicious smoothie, and that's what I'm going to make tomorrow morning before I go to work. Thanks for listening. Thanks for everybody's support. Thanks for joining me on this messy journey. Who knows where it's going to go? Thanks for listening to my rambling. I'm grateful, really grateful for anyone and everyone who has listened, supported, given me kind kudos and suggestions. And I really hope that you'll continue to walk this journey with me until we meet again. Over and out. Bye. So we've reached the end of today's episode. Thanks so very much for listening. It's now time to reconnect to planet Earth and all that comes with living on the blue ball. I'd love to hear your ideas for future episode topics, along with any and all positive and or constructive feedback. Please feel free to contact me at ashysbadass@gmail.com. Thanks again for spending some time with me and allowing me to share myself with you. Until next time, please be gentle with yourselves, be kind to animals, and do all you can to allow your authentic selves to shine brightly.